can use either of this missing data given the rest of the data are available. So you can compute either of this missing data by using one of this formula. Okay. Now future values. Okay. This component called future value, where we are assuming it to be 0. Okay. So in case, let's say, instead of making a monthly installment of 10,624, I decide that I will make a payment of 8,000 only per month. So in that case, I want to see that at the end of 5 years, what will be the outstanding loan. So in that case, I will use future value. Why future value is because I want to understand that what will be the future value of this loan, given that I am making a payment of 8,000 rupees. So again, it asks me for an interest. Okay. It asks me for number of period. I give it the number of period. Okay. It asks me for a PMT. PMT will be 8,000. Okay. I'll have to put a negative amount because it will be a payment from my side. I give it a present value, which is 5 lakh rupees. Type I did not give, and I close the bracket. So it basically says that if instead of making a monthly installment of 10,624, if you make a payment of only 8,000 by the end of 5 years, okay, you will still have an outstanding loan of 2,03,158. Right. So this is how we can use the future value function also. Fine. So now let's understand the other important finance function, which will be used very often by us finance student. That is our NPV and IRR function. So NPV is a very simple formula. The name of the formula stands as it is NPV. So it asks you for a rate, give it a rate. Here we don't need to divide it by 12 because I am assuming that the cash inflow which will come will be a yearly thing. It asks you for the value, so different value. So of course in the year 0, okay, your value has to be a negative because that will be a cash outflow. So including your cash outflow, you give it all the cash flows and you close the bracket and you get your NPV. Right? So the NPV for this series of cash flow, that is minus 1,000 in year 0, and then followed by a series of positive cash flow in each of the year. At the end of each of the year, the NPV of this project will be 784. Similarly, you can calculate the IRR. In IRR, you just need to give the value rather than the interest rate also. So IRR will be calculated for you. Right? Now let's assume that this cash flow is not uniform. That is, the cash flow is not always occurring at the end of a given year. Okay. Rather, this cash flow is occurring at a given date. Okay, like the date which we see here in this particular row. So in that case, rather than using the NPV, I use the formula called XNPV. Right. So it asks you for a rate, give it a rate. It asks you for values, give it the values, and finally it asks you for the third argument, which is the date. So you give a parallel date and you close your bracket. Right. So you see that your NPV has been calculated for the date-wise payment which you are making or which you are receiving. Fine. Similarly, you can calculate your XIRR, okay, for a payment which is not occurring at the end of a period but at different dates. So it asks you for value and then it asks you for the dates. Fine. And you get your IRR. Clear? So again, these are a few functions which will be useful for the finance students. Okay, now this is one of my interesting topic for this class, that is your loan amortization table. Okay, so again I am taking the same example, that is my loan amount is 5 lakh, interest rate is 10%, frequency is basically monthly, that's why 12, so tenure is 5 years. My start date, that is the date from which my loan will be started, is 28th of February, and I have a future value which will be 0. Okay, so let me explain you how do we calculate an amortization table. Amortization table is nothing but which calculates the month wise. Okay, it tells you the period, it tells you what is the total amount paid, in the total amount what is the principal component, what is the interest component, and finally what is the balance outstanding amount at the end of the given period. Okay, so first I create a series, okay, a serial number. Okay, let me delete this, let me create it again. So first I create a series. Creating a series is easy. So in this case we know that it will be 60, so let me drag it till 60. Okay, let me use the autofill option called fill series, and let me fill it till 60 for 60 months. Okay, you can see that in between I have grouped certain rows because otherwise the amount of data will be too high. So for convenience sake, I have hidden the rows in between. Okay, now let's first calculate the period. Okay, so what will be the period? Now I know that my loan starting from 28th Feb 2015. So there is a function in Excel which we didn't cover in date when we are studying the date function. It's called end of month. So end of month asks you for a start date. You give it a start date, and then you say how many months you want to add after the start date. So I say 1, or rather I link it to the serial number. Okay, because whatever be the start date of your loan, the period will be 1 month after that. So you use this formula, and you see you have got 1. Now let me freeze this cell which is the starting date. Okay, let me freeze this cell, and then let me use the autofill option. Right, so you saw that I got all the dates filled, the period filled, that is March, April, May. So each month will be added referring to the serial number. So starting from the start date, it will keep adding 1 month year on year. Month on. Clear? Now we all know how to what is the formula for PMT. Okay, so PMT stands for rate. Okay, don't forget to divide it by 12, and also don't forget to freeze it because we'll be copy pasting this formula for the rest of the rows. It asks you for number of periods. So number of period will be nothing but frequency. Okay, I can directly create it, or I can just link it here. Frequency into tenure. Okay, I'm giving further flexibility to my formula. My present value is nothing but 5 lakh. Let me freeze this cell also. Okay, and then it says future value. My future value is 0. Please finally this cell. Right, so I get my PMT. So my EMI for this series of payment will be 10,624, which we already saw in the last in the previous sheet also. We also know how to now compute the PPMT. Okay, and now this period option will be very useful to us. We will see. So PPMT will be your rate. Okay, it says period, so I link it to the serial number because I want to calculate the payment component in the EMI for each of this period. Okay, you will see that for each period the principal and the interest component keeps changing. I also give it the number of period, which is our frequency, into the total tenure. Okay. It asks me for present value. Let me give it the present value. Okay. It asks you for a future value. Let it give you a future value. Don't forget to freeze this cell because you will be copy pasting the formula. Don't freeze the serial number because that has to be dynamic. And I close the bracket and I get my principal amount, and let me fill this data using the autofill option. Right, so you see that the principal component keep increasing as a time passes, because with passing month you are paying a certain portion of your loan. So outstanding balance will keep decreasing, as we will see in few minutes from now. Okay, similarly I can compute my interest component IPMT. Okay, I will give it a rate. It is F4. Okay, I give it a period, so link it to the serial number. Number of period will again be frequency into tenure. Okay. I will give it a present value, and finally I give it a future value. I close the bracket and I get my interest component. Again you will see that interest component keep changing. Okay, and as the month passes, our interest component will keep decreasing because again the balance outstanding is decreasing. So what will be my balance outstanding at the end of first month? It will be total loan outstanding, that is 5 lakh, minus, or in this case plus, because here we already have a negative sign, plus the principal amount which is repaid. Okay, so my outstanding loan will be 4,93,000. What will be my outstanding loan at the end of second year? Outstanding loan again minus the principal amount which I have repaid, and now I can copy paste this formula. Okay, so you see that each year, at the end of each month, our balance outstanding keep decreasing, and hence the interest component keep decreasing. Since the interest component keep decreasing, out of the total EMI, which is a fixed amount, the principal component keep increasing, and finally exactly at the end of 68th month, okay, by paying the same amount of EMI, okay, our loan depletes to exactly 0. Right, so this is how easy creating an amortization table is with regard to the once we know this easy functions called PPMT, IPMT, SLT. Clear? Okay. Now let me help you understand a few depreciation functions which Excel has inbuilt for calculating our depreciation. Okay, again we know that there are 3-4 methods for calculating depreciation. Let me explain them one by one to you. So first one is your straight line method. A straight line method, as we know, is a fixed amount of depreciation every year, okay, based on the original cost of the asset minus the salvage value. Right. So again, Excel has an inbuilt function called SLM. It asks you for the cost of the asset. Okay, it asks you for a salvage value and the life of the asset. And Excel will calculate the depreciation amount each year for you. If you want to create a table, you will have to freeze this cell, and then I can use the autofill option. So my depreciation for all the 9 years will be 900. In fact, since the life of the asset is 10 years, let me increase it to 10. Okay, and you will see that same performance. Okay, fine. We will just see what happens once the life of the asset gets completed in different method of depreciation. First, let's understand the different methods available for calculating the depreciation. Right. So let's understand the second method, which is sum of year digit. S by D, it's called S by D, not S by M minus 2. Okay, so it's called sum of year digit. So sum of year digit method is basically used for companies which are involved in mining, etc. Right. So if the life of the asset is 10 years, okay, the way to calculate the way Excel calculates the depreciation rate, or the way as sum of year digit method uses, it will be for first year the depreciation will be 10 divided by, okay, it will add the number of years, so 10 plus 9 plus 8, etc. right, up to 1. Okay, so this is how Excel will do the calculation. Okay, let me exclude the 0. Okay, so that's what the sum of year digit method is. It's again, as I said, used for the mining industry, etc., where the amount of resources is fixed. So it all depends upon how much resources we have utilized in a given year. That's what depreciation is all about. So we say that if the life of the asset is 10 years, and in the first year, if we have depleted it, we have the useful life of the asset was 10 years. So in the first year, we have depleted 10 divided by the sum of the life of the asset. Okay. So no need to worry. S by D the formula will directly calculate this amount for you. So it asks you for the cost again, then it asks you for the salvage value, and then it asks you for the life. Okay, and then it also asks for an additional information that year, the period. Right, so for which period you want to calculate the depreciation. So I link it to this. So you see that we get the depreciation for the first year. Okay, let me freeze this cell and we will get it for the rest of the year as well. So I freeze cell B3, B4, B5. Okay, and now I can copy paste the form. So you see that every year the depreciation will keep decreasing because we are assuming that the life of the asset or the usability of the asset is higher in the initial year. Okay. Then we have one formula in Excel it's called declining balance. Okay. Now Excel has a particular way of calculating this formula, which, to be very honest, I don't understand. All I can tell you about declining balance is that it uses a fixed rate as a declining balance method, fixed rate of depreciation. How is the rate calculated is something like this. Okay, so it's 1 minus. Okay, now 1 minus, you can see I have put in a square bracket. So salvage value divided by the cost value, cost of the asset. The whole thing raised to the power of 1 divided by the life of the asset. Right, so using this formula, it calculates the rate of depreciation, and it keeps applying the rate of depreciation to the WDV of the asset. Now let me take a minute and explain you the difference in SLN and WDV, although I'm sure you already know it. In SLN method, the depreciation is applied to the original cost of the asset, while in declining balance, okay, the depreciation rate is applied to the WDV, that is the outstanding or the remaining balance of the asset. Right. So first let me explain you how the DV formula. So it asks you for the cost, give it the cost. Okay. It asks for a salvage value. Okay. Let me keep freezing the formula as well. Sorry. Okay. And it asks you for the life, give it a life, and then it says period. Okay, so I guess okay, let me freeze this cell as well. Right. So you see that it computes the declining balance, and as I have given you an example that this is how it calculates the depreciation rate, which is 21%. It rounds it off to the 3 decimal place if I am correct. Okay, and then if you copy paste this formula, okay, you see that each year, okay, in the next year, okay, let me calculate the WDV for you. So my WDV for first year will be the total cost of the asset minus the depreciation. Okay, Yes, you are absolutely right. In declining balance or in double declining balance method, the salvage value is not considered initially. Okay, we will see what happens to the salvage value. That is, if Excel is asking for salvage value, definitely it's using it somewhere. We will see where is it using it, right? So at the end of first year, my WDV will be 7940, and Excel have applied a 21% rate to the 7940 and calculated 1633. The difference is because of some rounding off which I have used here. Fine. So this is how the declining balance method works. Fine. Okay. And finally, this is useful, especially this double declining balance method is used very often in US scenario. So what does a double declining method do is it exactly doubles. Okay. By default, if you don't give it any factor, by default it doubles the depreciation percentage for you. How does it calculate the depreciation percentage? 1 divided by the life of the asset. Right. So in this case, if the life of the asset is 10 years, okay, so normally depreciation will be 10%, but in double declining method, it will increase it to 20% for you. So we will see that double declining balance. So it asks for a cost, okay, it asks for a salvage value, and finally it asks for life and period. Let me just freeze this cell. Fine. So you see that rather than taking 10%, it's taking 20%, which is 2000. Okay, now let me compute the WDV using double declining balance method. So WDV, as you are right, is 8,000 rupees for us. Fine. In the next year, that is in the second year, as I will see, as I will show you that the depreciation rate will be 20% still, but it will be applied on the WDV instead of on the original cost of the asset. Okay. So second year, my WDV will be existing WDV minus depreciation. And now I can also calculate this. Fine. So you see that almost at the end of the life of the asset, which is 10 years, okay, the asset is close to the salvage value of the asset as well. Fine. Now let's see what happens if I try and calculate the depreciation beyond 10 years. Okay. So let me say 11 and 12. Right. So you see that it throws a number error. The number error is thrown because the life of the asset is 10 years, so it will calculate the depreciation only for the 10 years. The same thing is not applicable for straight line method. It will keep depreciating till the time you copy paste the formula. Right? It doesn't link it to the life of the asset per se. Right? So that's the difference between SLN and the rest of the method. Another thing which you need to notice about the salvage value is that, let's say if I change the life of the asset to 5 years. Okay. Please pay attention here. This is what I'm trying to say. Now you see that after 5 years, all the remaining formula will throw an error, which now we are already aware of, and SLN method will keep calculating the depreciation. But this is not what I'm trying to show you. What I'm trying to show you is here. Now if the life of the asset is 5 years, what will be the rate of depreciation? 1 divided by 5, which is 20%. And since we are using double declining method, what will be the rate of depreciation? You are absolutely right, it will be 40%. Fine. So at the end of 4th year, what is the WDV of my asset? 1296. So the depreciation on this should be 1296 into 40%. So which should be 518. But you see that the depreciation computed is only 296 and it leaves the WDV asset to be not lower than salvage value, right? So what I'm trying to say is, once your asset reaches the salvage value, the formula will stop calculating the depreciation any further on it, right? So in the last year, okay, the last year of depreciation, okay, it will adjust the amount of depreciation so that your WDV doesn't go below the salvage value. This is how double declining method takes care of the salvage value. Fine. So this is something you need to remember, not only in Excel but also in your practical life. Like this is how you should deal with the salvage value in case of double declining or WDV method of your depreciation. Right. One last thing which I want to show you with respect to the depreciation is that if it has one more argument called factor. Okay. So factor is nothing but by default it takes 2. But if I make it 3, so you will see that it will take double declining method will become now triple declining method more or less. Right? So instead of taking 10%, it will now take 30%. By default, it's always taken 2. Right? So that's the last thing you can use in double declining method, double declining balance.